Have you ever wondered how much protein you need in a day? We're going to dive into that, especially when it comes to GI issues like IBD. So before we dive in, I'm Ashley.
And hello, I'm Danielle.
We're the Crohn's and colitis dietitians. We specialize in IBD specifically, and we also happen to have IBD. So let's dive in. How much protein do we need? So protein's such a hot topic right now. I feel like I'm hearing about it all the time from people having questions about it. Some people coming in, having twice what they actually need, sometimes barely getting anything at all. So let's kind of clear up that and really dive into how much we actually need.
Yes. So when it comes to protein, we quite often like to give it on a range because it's not realistic to hit the same amount of grams of protein every single day. So that's why we like to give protein on a range. So when it comes to IBD, your daily protein needs are 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of ideal body weight.
To clarify, so the range is 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight for IBD. So we would definitely say on the higher end for someone in an active disease and maybe dealing with multiple things, maybe bumping up the protein as best we can. And also if we see signs of protein deficiency, like wasting, so you can actually see some of these things on people. Even though we work virtually, we can sort of see it. We can see a lot of the things that we look for with nutrients and including stuff like protein. So protein, you might see more muscle wasting, so less muscle.
Yeah, your eyes might look more sunken in. There may be more bony prominence in your hands, around your clavicle, your wrist bones, your ribs, around your knee. Those items could protrude a little bit more.
Yeah, so we might stay on the higher end in those cases, or if you've gotten an active infection, which can sometimes happen. And let's talk about kilogram weight for a second, because not every country uses kilogram weight.
No.
We don't, but in the medical system, we do. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to calculate your kilogram weight, we would take your pound weight. So pound weight divided by 2.2 will give you kilogram weight.
Yes.
So let's do a little math calculation.
Absolutely.
So start with 150.
Yeah. So if someone's 150 pounds, you want to divide that by 2.2, and that gives you your kilogram weight, which is, we always like to round to a whole number. So 68 kilograms. You take the 68 kilograms, and like I said, protein is always given on a range. So we could do 68 times 1 or 68 times 1.2, depending on that individual's needs. But if someone is in a real bad way with their IBD, meaning they are not tolerating a lot of foods, kind of what Ashley described, like seeing some muscle wasting, we may want to start at the higher range of protein, meaning we'll do 68 times 1.5, which is about 102 grams of protein in your day. Again, I kind of like to round to an easier number, if you will. So I would say about 100 grams of protein in your day.
Yeah. And, this does change depending on how active you are and depending on what your goals are. So let's say you started strength training and you're wanting to build muscle, then we might alter that a little bit to fit that. And we might encourage a fueling plan, like something before and after, to really encourage recovery of the muscle. Or, if you're in a sport like rowing, or you're in a basketball, or you even have a job that's very active, like if you're a police officer, firefighter, or a healthcare provider. So if you're a healthcare provider in doing inpatient, you're walking around the whole day pretty much, unless you're charting. So yeah, there's all different levels of activity that we might alter that a little bit. Typically, we go a little bit higher depending on what the goals are and if you're more active.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe it's important now to talk about too, like, why do we want protein in our lives? Protein is so fantastic in that not only can it help with muscle preservation, but it can help to build muscle. It can help with wound healing. It can really help too with increasing satiety. There's just so many great things about protein, and it's something that we want to ensure that people with IBD are getting enough of so that they can help their body out especially when their disease is extremely active. Because a lot is happening at that level, we want to make sure that we can have protein to help with that wound healing that's happening.
Yeah. Important thing you brought up is that we think about nutrients a lot of times, like zinc, for example, or iron in terms of their involvement with repair, but also protein can play a crucial role, and even in stuff like the immune system and having a proper immune response. So we definitely don't want to see people not getting enough protein, but we also don't want to overshadow other macronutrients as well, like carbohydrates and fats, which all of them create a nice balance and have important roles in terms of how we're functioning and how well we're responding to meds and how well we're responding in terms of an immune response. So they definitely all play a role in the context of the overall picture. But I do think it's important for us to dive into like actually how much do we need? Because when I was a personal trainer, I can remember years ago when I worked in a gym, I would overhear personal trainers telling people they needed to just go twice their body weight or something like pretty outrageous claims. And I was wondering at the time, where are they getting these numbers? Because I had studied personal training too, and we never read anything about that. And then also being a dietitian, having that foundation and knowing what we know from that perspective. So you hear all kinds of outrageous things about protein and sometimes overstating the amount that we need or overstating its role in terms of workouts, because you also need other stuff to be able to recover as well, not just protein. But yeah, it's important for us to clear some of these things up.
Absolutely, yeah. And much like when we talk about fiber and taking it slow, protein, you can kind of say the same thing in taking it slow for a certain reason. So, what I mean by that is if you're someone who maybe eats one meal in their day or two meals in their day because you're really struggling with your gut, we don't expect you to the next day just jump immediately to 100 grams of protein. It may require a staged approach to get your gut accustomed to more food.
And sometimes with IBD too, we might use a formula type approach. Like oftentimes we might recommend there's stuff like Kate Farms, Liquid Hope, Orgain, which is over the counter. ON. Some of these either formula or protein drinks that can fill in the gaps. And sometimes when I'm traveling and maybe a road trip, for example, and you don't have access to the same stuff, and especially if I travel out like West Texas, there are no restaurants from past Austin to all the way to El Paso. There's nothing but fast food and a couple gas stations. So I might use stuff like that to help fill the gaps a little bit. Easy to transport. It's not going to upset your stomach. That it's good to have those like stop gaps when you're in that kind of a place where you might have a protein deficit.
Yeah, absolutely. Road trip snacks are always helpful.
Yeah, road trip snacks, or maybe even when you're in a flare. I think when you're in a flare, sometimes your tolerance can go down quite a bit, and you might not be eating full meals, or the meals have shrunk a little bit. Sometimes those types of drinkable stuff are easier to tolerate and can help be a bridge to when you can eat further food.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope that was helpful in breaking down how much protein you actually need. And if you need any support on that specifically, reach out. We're happy to chat and work with you if needed. Take care, everybody.